Hello, Parkside family and friends. This is Pastor Rodney trying to check in. Last week I said that I would check in from time to time with a little bit of ideas or encouragement or stories or whatever you might need to hear, hopefully. And today I thought I would check in with you and share with you some biblical stories of quarantine or self-isolation. Now, to be completely fair and upfront and honest, these stories and the ideas come from Deborah Reinstra, who is a Calvin College professor. She posted a lot of these stories and ideas of biblical quarantine on the Reformed Journal earlier this week. And so I am stealing them, except giving her complete credit. Now, of course, I'm going to riff on them a little bit. So if there's stuff you don't like about what I'm sharing, then that's all from me. And if there's stuff that you really do like, that all comes from her. So biblical stories of quarantine, and we're taking a little bit of liberty with these. I'm going to share three of them with you this morning or for this video, and then maybe three next week, and then the following week, three, just for encouragement. And I hope that these stories might give you a little bit of laughter. So we're going to start here with the Garden of Eden, and it's the story of our two parents who aren't exactly quarantined, but they are self-isolated. They are away from any other people that they know of, and they're stuck in the garden. And so here's a way of thinking about the Garden of Eden. Maybe Adam and Eve got bored, or they got restless, and they acted out like children tired of restrictions. And God had said, don't eat of this fruit. And being bored and restless, they said, we're eating of this fruit because we're so sick and tired of this quarantine and we just can't stand it. So that's an idea for the Garden of Eden and how we might be quarantined in that. The second story that I want to talk about is really more of an idea of quarantine and some thoughts for you in light of it. It is the story of the ark. God takes Noah and his family and puts them into the ark, and they spend an inordinate amount of time in it. So if you are thinking, man, this last week and a half or 2 weeks is just feeling like forever, imagine being in the ark for over a year. Now, this is serious quarantine. And as bad as you think you might have it now, maybe with rambunctious children who are bouncing off the walls like monkeys, imagine a floating lockdown with actual monkeys and tigers and bears. Oh my, at least some of us have takeout, or we have Netflix or old DVDs that can keep us sane through the midst of this lockdown in our homes. Noah had none of that, just a bunch of animals and all that they create and his own kids, and locked down in an ark for over a year. It's no wonder that Noah, the first steps that he took off the ark, he has a few stiff drinks and passes out. Who can blame him for having to be quarantined for that long with that situation? A few stiff drinks sounds about right. Now, the last bit of quarantine is the story of the desert. Now, you know that Israel gets through the Red Sea waters with the Exodus out of Egypt, and they then make their way through the desert to the Promised Land. And there's a sense in which they're isolated and it's only themselves. So they're not exactly quarantined in the desert, but they have a little bit of social distancing. It's just them, and they get really tired of it. And eventually Israel figures out that if they complain long enough and loud enough, God would provide. Yeah? Now, this might not be a story or a lesson that you would like to share with your children. God forbid they complain long enough and loud enough. But how about if you announce to them this afternoon that for dinner you're going to have manna and quail? That would get their attention, and that's not always so bad. So, as you're stuck at home, as you're growing restless, as you're thinking of all the things you might be missing, remember the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve. Remember the ark and poor Noah, just stuck for over a year, day after day after day, with monkeys and tigers and bears, oh my. And then remember the desert, 40 years of Israel complaining and bitter and bickering until God would provide. In all these things, remember that God's love and grace did provide. And the laughter that it might share with us is an opportunity to have a little bit of mirth in the midst of our own struggles, in the midst of all the things that we miss, and in all the ways that we might complain or pray or hope for others and for ourselves. So God bless, stay safe, continue to have physical distancing among yourselves and your neighbors and friends, but remember to continue with social solidarity, to reach out to people with love and care and compassion. And grace and peace in Christ.